Hey everyone, welcome to my February 2024 income report for my heavily edited AI case study site. My name is Casey and I'm the founder of bloggingguide.com. In this series, I'll take you through the entire process of building my latest heavily edited AI blog, and each month I'll be providing updates on the income generated by this digital asset. So if you want to get tips, tricks, and insights, or just follow along with the process, be sure to like and subscribe to my channel. So first, just to give you a little bit of context, the whole reason for doing this site is basically to determine if heavily edited AI content can still thrive in Google search results in 2024, and basically to establish whether I can replicate the success of my first site. If you didn't have a chance to check out that whole video series, I'll provide a link in this video's description. So there were basically three main goals or objectives with this site. The first was that I knew I needed 25,000 sessions per month in organic search traffic. Why 25,000? Well, I'm already in Mediavine Pro, so I can add a second site with 25,000 sessions as opposed to 50,000. And basically, yeah, that's the whole strategy behind the site, is to at least initially only monetize it using display ads. So Mediavine just happens to be my favorite of the display ad networks. I have 5 sites on there, but you could apply this same methodology to a site if you were, say, on Raptive or any other display ad network. The second goal was to basically cover this niche in its entirety in order to achieve some degree of topical authority. More specifically, I was able to do this in my previous case study site, but it took a long time. As many of you probably recall, I was spending anywhere at the beginning of upwards of 3 to 4 hours editing each post. So this was a significant investment of time. While I still think it's important to edit all AI content, the goal with this study was to see if I could basically also find a topic where the AI writing tool would get it right more on the first try, and I could spend less time actually going through and editing it. So basically, niche selection did matter in this case. And the third goal was avoid getting destroyed by Google. So obviously, Google search has been very volatile recently. So I wanted to be careful both not to produce too much content and risk basically Google thinking that I'm uh, just sort of spamming it with tons of content. And then I wanted to make sure that, each post actually had some genuine value. If a site and the posts within it don't have kind of concrete value, whether or not you're impacted by Google search updates, you're going to have trouble with your engagement metrics because people aren't going to stay on your site if they don't find it somewhat useful. So just to give you a little bit of information about the site, I purchased the domain in 2023. And this was a fresh domain, so it didn't have any, there had never been any content on this, hosted on this domain. So yeah, it was a true fresh domain. And I didn't even do my typical uh, shell site structure where I allowed the site to age first and then started adding content. So I launched the site and started publishing in January of 2023, just days after I'd bought the domain. And then obviously it takes a little while for traffic to pick up. The advantage this site had was, again, it only needed to get to 25,000 versus normal 50,000 sessions in order to get into Mediavine. So it still took longer than I would have liked, but eventually, I guess about 13, 14 months later, it was accepted into Mediavine in February of 2024. So that's where I'm basically starting this case study. There were no backlinks. This was definitely not an expired domain. And I didn't use anything black hat like PBNs or anything else to artificially boost the site. I don't really do that in any of my sites, but especially for the purpose of these case studies, um, yeah, there's no sort of trickery when it comes to the actual links to the site. They're all obtained naturally through, organic content production. The niche for this site, it's basically a sub niche within the arts and crafts space. It does have a digital component, which I'm hoping will skew the RPMs a little higher, but that remains to be seen. It's pretty firmly in the arts and crafts niche. I'm not going to go any more specific than that because I know everyone tries to find these sites, but yeah, arts and crafts would be the broad niche that this is classified under. And that's also why I applied to Mediavine in particular. You could apply to Raptive for an arts and crafts site, certainly too, but in my experience, Mediavine really excels in this area. And just based on my background research, that was sort of the ad network where I saw a lot of sites that survived previous updates in this very specific niche. And the site has around 500 posts. Um, Obviously, I didn't do these all at once. I think it was actually pretty even, the content distribution. I would basically do like a month of sort of like 2 posts a day, on and off, like alternating months. So basically, yeah, I might have as many as 50 or 60 posts one month, and then just a few, like 5 the next month, and sort of followed that pattern. Not because you have to, that was just sort of the rhythm I got into with this site. But yeah, it currently has about 500 posts, and all those posts are indexed, which is a really good sign. But most of them haven't reached their optimal ranking state. Probably only 100 or so of the posts have actually reached that point. So obviously, it wouldn't be a complete case study if I didn't include the costs, just to provide you with a full picture, because obviously it doesn't really matter how much you're making, it's how much you're netting. So for this case study, I pretty much kept it simple. The domain was just a standard new domain on Namecheap, so that's about $10 a year. That would need to be renewed annually. The hosting and theme for this, I kept it really simple. I've switched up the theme twice. I generally build my sites on something like very simple. So whether it's Generate Press, Trellis, uh, there's lots of Astra. There's lots of like simple themes that will do the job. As long as your theme, allows you to compress images and sort of optimizes enough so that you don't need a bunch of extra plugins, I'd say the theme is fine. I'm more concerned with hosting, and that's where most of this expense comes from, this monthly expense of about $25. So I use Kinsta for pretty much all my sites, and Kinsta is really fast, incredibly reliable, and yeah, but it is a little more expensive. It's not the same as if you got like Namecheap's plan, uh, or GoDaddy or something like that. So this is a little more, but this is the kind of thing that I think is worth investing in, even during that first year where the site wasn't really earning anything, just to give it the chance to rank. I think hosting like really fast and kind of well-tuned hosting is worthwhile. And then, of course, the other major costs are the actual credits for Koala Writer, the AI writing tool that I use to generate the content. Now, this is a little hard to calculate because I've both had like a lifetime deal for Koala and I purchased thousands of dollars of credits since in bulk. But I tried to price the credits at what it would cost someone today if they were to basically purchase the equivalent amount of credits, which hasn't shifted that much in price. So it in total for the 500 posts, I've I think it actually was less than 345, but to be conservative, yeah, it would take about $345 um, in Koala credits, and that includes like all the rough drafts and versions that didn't make it to production, basically. So that's how much I've spent just experimenting and then producing the content that I would later edit. So, I'd say that in total, um, as of February of 2024, costs are basically a little under, say, 750 total. So obviously you can monetize the site before you get into Mediavine if you're building up to 25 or even 50,000 sessions per month. There is value in that traffic before you hit those thresholds, even if you're using sort of the simplest display ad networks like Google AdSense. I did add AdSense on this site a few months before I actually got it approved for Mediavine. I did this mainly just to get a sense of what the RPMs were, not really because it was going to generate any money. Like I said, I think in the entire time, from all of 2023 and the beginning of 2024 through right before getting this into Mediavine, I think the total was like 500 or 600 I earned from AdSense. I'm not going to include the AdSense in here because A, it's not that much, but also B, AdSense is kind of, and Google are kind of weird about that and don't like you sharing screenshots. So anyway, the exciting part is getting into Mediavine. So basically, yeah, I was able to do a little over $50 this first month. This only encompassed probably, I don't know, like a full week of earnings. So I know the number, assuming everything holds constant, will be higher next month. So this wasn't the full month of February. Um, but yeah, it's pretty cool to see this site get on there. And the important thing to consider when watching this is that typically these numbers are going to be higher, mainly because if you're not in Mediavine Pro or Premiere, you're going to have to onboard a site at 50,000 sessions. So the numbers are going to start, at least twice as high. But this is the actual results from the first month. Here are the Google Analytics graphs. As you can see, the site kind of reached, well, it surpassed 25,000 sessions. That was pretty much the goal. And yeah, so I was only able to do that once I, midway through February. So it took a while for this site to get approved compared to the first one for Mediavine. But it's still actually a pretty reasonable trajectory. Getting it accepted in about 14, 15 months is actually probably pretty par for the course. I'd say it's pretty good if you were able to do this as a new blogger, maybe even better than average. But yeah, I had a lot of sites going, so I couldn't dedicate all my time to this. But it did get approved, and as you can see, there was, as is typical, usually the traffic is compounding really quickly in the months right before you get accepted. So it's up 181% from the previous month. So yeah, it's almost tripling there. Now a lot of that was that I started like testing some other things on the site, doing a little bit of social media marketing and just promoting the content in other ways. Going forward, I don't think that'll be a main strategy for this site, but again, you got to get to 25,000 or 50,000 sessions to apply to media vines. So, you know, you can only move the needle so fast on organic search, and I'm being cautious with how many posts I'm adding. So, in order to kind of boost that, I decided to, go for a different stream of traffic, even if it's not as cost effective and takes more time than I would normally like to spend. So, some quick content creation FAQs that I'm sure I'll get based on the feedback from the previous video. But what AI tool did I use for this? So basically, I primarily generated the drafts using Koala Writer, and I'll have a link to that in the description of this video. Koala Writer is basically a one-click tool. So you enter like a seed keyword or phrase, and it can generate an entire article based on that. That's at least how Koala is advertised. I, to be clear, would not advocate that. I think it's great for generating that first draft, but then I go through these posts and I spend a significant amount of time editing and improving them. But yeah, the main tool I used was Koala. I also used ChatGPT. Um, uh, I guess I did use the premium version of that because I was just using it so much. I think with the AI image generation that I ran out of, it was basically throttling my amount of usage. But you could use the standard 3.5. It wouldn't have had any impact on this. So when did I use Koala versus ChatGPT? Like I said, I use Koala for the first draft typically. Now there's some articles that are not conducive to writing in Koala. These are ones where you really know what you want to talk about in each section, and maybe you don't even know the answer, even if you have some familiarity with the subject matter. So, in those cases, sometimes starting a chat sort of discussion with Chat GPT is actually the better way to do it. In those sections, you can basically keep teasing out the answer, prompting Chat GPT to elaborate on things or consider some information from another perspective. And basically, you'll get a better answer. To be clear, you could do this with Koala in the outline writer. You can enter different custom prompts basically for each section. But if you really want to go deep, usually it's better to use Chat GPT for these types of sections. So the other obvious question is, how long am I spending on each of these articles? So like I said, in the previous case study, it was anywhere from 1 to 4 hours. So that was sort of my expectation coming into this. In reality, I think I picked a niche this time that's a little better suited just for the type of content that I ultimately would generate. Part of this was an educated guess based on my experience over the past 18 months, nonstop using AI tools, basically finding a niche that's conducive to an AI writing tool. But part of it was just luck or experimentation. Again, I have a lot of sites, and it becomes very clear quickly that they're not conducive to at least the style I do, where you do a AI generated draft first and then edit from there. It's quicker just to write the article yourself. And at the end of this, end of the day, I am a writer, and I heavily rewrite these. So, if as far as how long I actually am spending on each article, well, I'd say I probably cut the overall time in half. That means I'm still spending, 1 to 2 hours per article. Part of the reason too I was able to get that time down was I also haven't generated as many visuals for this niche in the previous site. I had pretty much custom images and infographics and featured images for every post. With this site, I'd say it's maybe, I don't know, only a third of the posts have all of those elements. I always still do a custom featured image. That's like the one constant across all my sites. But this site had some content that just didn't really lend itself easily to infographics, which are kind of my wheelhouse. So I might go back and add some sort of graphics. And actually, am in the process of doing that. But I was able to basically produce the articles as is a little bit faster because they didn't require the same amount of visuals. And also because I was able to include some YouTube videos, not videos that I created, but videos that I found that basically could elaborate on certain points. And while it's not as good as having your own custom images, if you can include a useful, relevant YouTube video, that tends to help, keep people on the page and answer their questions. So it's a good strategy if you're trying to save a little bit of time on the editing process. Also, yeah, this niche did not, I definitely learned to pick a niche where you're not encountering a lot of factual inaccuracies. And I would say, in my experience, the arts and crafts niche, there were very few hallucinations. So I had to spend far less time uh, editing and sort of fact checking. In the previous site with technology, because everything was new and I was sort of at the forefront of things, sometimes it would, uh, Koala would suggest something and I'd later, learn that it made up or exaggerated the capabilities of some product. I'm not really encountering that so far with this arts and crafts niche site. So, am I building backlinks? No, I'm not building backlinks. Again, I have nothing against building backlinks, and backlinks are super important. I'll actually have a video about some of the strategies I use that basically increase the odds of naturally getting backlinks. I'll have a video about that coming up soon, but I don't do any outreach or pay for any links. Um, Honestly, mainly just because it's expensive. It's a good and very effective model. Like if you want to grow, backlinks are kind of key. And certainly as you get bigger, you eventually will need them, whether you earn them naturally or you pay for them. They're like the closest thing you'll have to a moat from other competitors in search. But yeah, I at this point and in general, in the first year, I don't think there's much benefit to building backlinks. If you pick a low enough competition niche, you can usually rank high enough, and then you'll earn the natural backlinks. The other thing is, if you've never done backlink building before, you run the risk of overdoing it. So you get a few bad backlinks that are connected to a site that gets identified by Google as being a link farm or something, and then your site might get hit. So this is all a very slow, white hat, deliberate effort. So no backlink building whatsoever. Will I only monetize for Mediavine? I'm open to doing affiliate monetization on this site, and there are some obvious opportunities. But again, so far I'm only focused on Mediavine just because display ads in general are very passive and I'm working on so many sites at once that yeah, if the monetization is handled for me, I can stop working on a site and it'll continue to generate some amount of income indefinitely. And that's really my whole business model. I yes, you can there are many ways. Like display ad monetization is the lowest form of monetization. Um, if you want to build a community and charge for subscription membership or build info products, these are ways to really uh, earn the most basically for each page view. But again, I like the passive nature of this. I have systems in place and enough data to know what works and what doesn't. So yeah, I'm going to stick with the display ads for now. Obviously, things are very volatile in search. So yeah, if it gets hit or something at some point, to make it worthwhile, I might switch to like an info product or something, maybe even a course. But for now, it's purely going to be display ads through Mediamine. And the other question I get is, how do you have time for so many sites? Well, first of all, I do spend a lot of time working on all these sites. So, I mean, I'm working on sites all day, every day, 7 days a week. So, in case, I usually throw out a lot of disclaimers. This is not a get rich quick scheme. But in case you missed that, this is definitely not a get rich quick scheme. This is definitely a strategy for people that have time, patience. Um, you don't necessarily need money, which is the nice part to get this started. Obviously, you can't start any other business, for just a few $100s. I mean, that's the advantage of doing an internet-based business. And that's partly why I have so many, is that, yes, it's great to be able to do one, but once you have a little bit of success, then I can basically start scaling and systematizing everything. And that provides some level of diversification. Some months, some sites do really well. Some months I'll end up selling a site. Some months like this, a site will get added to Mediavine and will, for the first time, start to become potentially a decent source of income. So, yeah, as far as having time for them, I most people's answer is delegation, which is probably the smarter thing. I've really focused on the automation component of it. I used to have a team of freelance writers, and while I still occasionally work with them for some of my other projects, none of these case study sites have freelance writers. I am the basically editor or freelance writer. But AI allows me basically to do this at like a much larger scale. Um, and given the volatility in Google search results, I think this is a good strategy just because it is very hard to predict, the long-term survivability of a website. So there is definitely a chance that this site, not because of the AI content, but just because of Google, trying to combat sort of spam, might, destroy this site at some point. And if so, you'll be able to see that happen. But so far, the site seems to be on a pretty good trajectory. That the niche is still largely underserved, which is the main thing. People need content for things they're searching, and there's no available information for. So a lot of this does come back to really advanced and sort of comprehensive keyword research. So you understand what to write about and understanding what sort of tangential search volume there is related to your topic. But if you want to build sites and you're sort of new to this whole model, don't start with multiple sites. I started with one, and that's really where everyone should start. I would say, unless you're making like a full-time living, or at least 50% of your full-time income is being replaced by sites, I wouldn't even start on a second site. Having this many sites takes a lot of time, and there are some synergies. For instance, I can buy credits in bulk. I can save on hosting by paying basically in bulk for a larger plan. When I learn something that is like a slight SEO hack, I can apply it to all my sites, thereby leveraging, each little bit of knowledge. But it's tough to have this many sites. And I'm not encouraging people to go start like a dozen sites. I've never seen that really work for anybody, to be honest. at least longer term than say a year, like you will fail if you do that. So the key is to build up slowly. If anything, I would say if you really have time and want to start multiple sites, it's okay to start them, but just seed them with like a few posts and let them start aging. But you shouldn't be actively working on dozens of sites. Uh, Even I question my sanity for working on this many sites half the time. Thanks for watching this video covering my latest AI case study site and the income report from February 2024. I know this month wasn't that exciting as it was just getting onboarded on the Mediavine, but hopefully the numbers will be going up from here. Even then, though, $50 a month is not so bad from something that's functioning entirely passively at this point. So I based on the early numbers I'm seeing, March is going to be significantly higher. I can't promise that I'll be able to replicate the previous case study where I got to 20,000+ a month, but I think this site can get to a few thousand at least a month. And that's very meaningful income. Definitely can be life-changing. So I've included all the relevant links in the video notes. If you want to check out more of my stuff, my main site is bloggingguide.com, and that's where I post all my blogging tips. I have a Substack newsletter where you can sign up for free and get sort of the latest updates. And if you want to follow me, I occasionally post on social media across all platforms at Casey Botticello. Thanks, and if you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel.